So Corynebacterium diphtheriae. It's gram positive and it's anaerobe. Okay. So it is one of the multiple causes of upper respiratory tract infections. And as you can see here, this is a great summary where we have the viruses that cause upper respiratory tract infections and the bacteria that cause upper respiratory tract infections. So here we are interested in Corynebacteria diphtheria. So in additional comments, it causes pharyngitis, which is inflammation of the pharynx, often mild, but toxic illness can be severe. Okay. Remember, we did all these viruses: rhino, corona, adeno, parainfluenza, coxsackie, all those. And we did streptococcus pyogenes. We're going to do Haemophilus and spirochetes. Okay. Here are the general characteristics: aerobic or facultatively anaerobic. So it can do with or without oxygen, but most of the time it's aerobic because it usually affects the lungs. So it's mostly an aerobe. Small, pleomorphic, club-shaped, gram-positive bacilli that appear in short chains, V or Y configuration, or clumps resembling Chinese letters. Very, very high yield. If you see, we usually say Chinese character distribution. That is Corynebacteria. Okay? Corynebacteria. We're going to see, as you can see here, they look like Chinese character distribution. Can you see? Like this one. Look at this. That looks like letter A, letter K, letter H. Okay. Then cells contain chromatic granules visualized with methylene blue stain and Albert stain. Very high yield. Okay. So the Albert stain is also known as the Neisser stain. You see metachromatic granules. Then lipid-rich cell wall contains mesodiaminofimelic acid, arabinogalactan polymers, and short-chained mycolic acids. Lysogenic bacteriophage encodes for potent exotoxin in virulent strains. Okay, so these are the general characteristics, as you can see here. And then, can you see the shape? What shape is this? There is a pointy end and a straight end. So it looks like a club. Okay. We call it club-shaped Chinese character distribution. So the Corynebacteria species, we are interested in this one, Corynebacteria diphtheriae. These are the other ones. Okay, diphtheriae. So respiratory diphtheria, pseudomembrane on the pharynx, and cutaneous diphtheria. So I want to show you the pseudomembrane on the pharynx. I have a good picture. Look, if you can see, okay, we call it pseudomembranous pharyngitis. Can you see here? It's slightly grayish, whitish appearance on the membrane. Yes, that is the pseudomembranous pharyngitis. And then prototype A, B exotoxins, they act systemically. And then toxoid in DPT, so diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, toxin. These are the vaccines, remember. So the diphtheria toxin encoded by tox gene introduced by lysogenic bacteriophage. Remember when we did virology, we said the bacteriophage is a virus that infects the bacteria, giving it certain genes that will encode for its virulence. So for example, in this case, it's the diphtheria toxin. Okay. Then the selective medium we use, this is very high yield, you must know. It is known as cysteine tellurite. Okay. Serum tellurite and Loeffler's medium. So on cysteine tellurite, you're going to see black colonies. Okay, then ignore 0.5, sorry. Virulence factors. The major virulence factor is exotoxin encoded on the lysogenized bacteriophage. The diphtheria toxin is classic AB toxin. Okay, AB toxin. You're going to ask yourself, how does it work? So, which action by shunt? It shuts down protein synthesis and kills the cell, diphtheria toxin. Binding component direct. Let me show you. I had a diagram here. Yes. Look. So, normally what happens in protein synthesis, we usually have a process where you see this elongation factor 2. It's a process that happens before protein synthesis. So what happens is NAD is converted to nicotinamide while this is produced, the elongation factor 2. So what happens is this toxin is going to come. So here's the diphtheria toxin. It's going to enter the cell. It's going to inactivate this process. Once inactivation happens here, no protein synthesis is going to happen because this elongation factor 2 is required for protein synthesis. But when we block here, no protein synthesis is going to happen. And once that happens, it is going to cause cell death because no proteins will be produced. Okay? So mechanism of action is, what is that I draw for you? So it inhibits protein synthesis by inactivation of elongation factor 2. We call it ADP ribosylation of elongation factor 2. Okay? Have you seen? This is what this theory is saying. The most important thing is it causes cell death by binding to the eukaryotic elongation factor 2. Therefore, shutdown of protein synthesis. Okay? That is what I want you to know. Just that. No need to cram all these things. Just remember it causes inhibition of protein synthesis by binding to elongation factor 2. That's enough. So that was the toxin. And then transmission, since it affects the respiratory symptom, so it is transmitted via respiratory droplets. Diphtheria colonize but does not invade the oropharynx, forming dirty white pseudomembranous dead cells, fibrin and gray pigment, as I had shown you here. Can you see them? These are the tonsils, and this is the pseudomembranous pigment. Okay, here's another picture. And then it causes something called as bull neck appearance. So bull neck appearance is basically lymphadenopathy, cervical lymphadenitis. From this site, the bacteria releases the exotoxin into the bloodstream, which damages the heart neural cells by interfering with protein synthesis. So look at this boy. This is his lymph nodes. He has lymph nodes here. So it's going to cause lymphadenopathy here. This is what we call bull neck appearance. Okay. Once it has spread via the lymph nodes, goes to the blood, it now goes to other organs. So it will go to the heart, causing myocarditis. So myocarditis is inflammation of the myocardium, which is the layer of the heart. So you're going to get heart failure, arrhythmias, okay? And then if it goes to the eyes, it can cause conjunctivitis. If it goes to the CNS, it can cause neuropathy. So you're going to have an issue with nerve transmission. If it goes to the kidneys, it will cause kidney disease. Okay. As you can see in this boy, he was not vaccinated and he developed severe diphtheria. Okay. This was the pseudomembranous pharyngitis. Mechanism of action, as I have told you, just binding to the elongation factor 2, therefore inhibiting protein synthesis, as I have showed here. Then this is the diphtheria. Then we go to diagnosis. Okay. For the diagnosis, Albert stain, as I had mentioned, also known as nasal stain, for demonstration of these chains, they're metachromatic granules. And then a throat swab, then you go culture on Loeffler's medium or Tellurite medium. And then we have something known as elect test. You see, Corynebacterium diphtheria is quite uncommon. It's quite uncommon because we have vaccines, the DPT. So you will never see it in your clinical practice unless someone is unvaccinated, of which that is quite rare in this modern day and age. So elect test in vitro is a doable diffusion test to detection precipitin line of diphtheria toxin on agar plate. So here's the elect test. So what happens is let's say you've collected your swab, you put it here and here, and then we have antitoxin soaked filler paper. Okay, so here are the antitoxins. So normally what happens is if the bacteria is toxigenic C. diphtheria, you're going to see this line grow. Okay. Because this is the antitoxin soaked paper. So if toxins are produced, it's going to grow like this. But if it is non-toxigenic, it is not going to grow like that. Okay, so this is how it's done. It's a double diffusion test performed directly on the surface of agar plate, sticking with diphtheria. After paper strip is impregnated with antiserum to toxin. If strain is toxin producing, precipitation of toxin with antitoxin serum will be forming a precipitation line. So can you see here? This is the precipitation line to show you that this sample that you put like this is responsible for this production of this toxin. So it is precipitated by this line. That is the elect test, but I've never even seen it done. But yeah, you have to know this because they can bring for you a picture like this, then they tell you label A, they label this A and B. Then you're required to know what is A, what is B. So if you see these precipitated lines, you know that this is toxigenic C. diphtheria. If it's not there, non-toxigenic. Okay. I don't have pictures for this, but maybe I'm going to attach them. Then for prevention, vaccination, definitely. Active immunization against toxoid induces antibodies directed against the beta subunit. So as we said, there's A and B. The toxin produced as A and B. These antibodies prevent receptor binding by the toxin. Okay. As you can see in this baby, this 10-year-old, there is a statement here written, all vaccines are contraindicated. What do you think? Why do you think in this patient with severe diphtheria that the vaccines that should be given for diphtheria are contraindicated? Why do you think? Pardon?
They can exacerbate the disease.
Excellent. Very
good. They can exacerbate.
Yes. So we want to prevent exacerbation of the disease. Because remember, the vaccine that you're giving is a toxin, is a toxoid, sorry. So you can imagine this person is having conjunctivitis, bull neck, myocarditis. Then you give them a toxoid. So you can imagine the problem you're giving him, especially on his immune system. Okay? You can imagine the immune response that is going to be in this child. It's going to be very, very heightened, and it will produce worse symptoms than these. Okay? The treatment strategy involves combination of antitoxin administration and antibiotics such as penicillin or erythromycin. So antitoxin administration is more of prevention rather than treatment, but once you get Corynebacteria, you use penicillin or erythromycin. Okay. The role of treatment, passive immunization is given with antitoxin to those who are suspected of having the disease already. In addition, penicillin or erythromycin is given not only to stop further growth of the bacteria, but also to prevent the patient from becoming a carrier after recovery. A procedure known as the Schick test is used to determine whether a person is susceptible to the diphtheria bacterium. Yes, and there I'm done. Any questions?